It's my pleasure to be part of that. I have continued my improvisational work, and I would like to read to you, well actually I'm going to read a couple of ones and I'll move on from there. So this is one that's particularly interesting to me. This was not one that I improv, this is one I love. And I love the story part of poetry. So those of you who are new to this, some of the new poets that came up tonight, I encourage you to trust your instincts. Stay really connected to wherever it is you're coming from, and try to avoid being too, as I have been so often, make too much of an effort to impress. Because this scene can be about impressing, but what really impresses me is when you just kind of connect. Anyway, this poem is titled, "My Hands Have Touched So Many Things." I'd like to just read this. My hands have touched so many things. Coffee pot on my grandmother's stove, purple irises in her garden, midsummer dandelions, creek mud along the edge, broken cornstalks, root hairs, and the possibility of earthworms. My hands have touched so many things. A month before he died, my father told me a story. He leaned forward in his wheelchair, and he told me that during the liberation of Europe, on his way to Berlin, he had stolen a fiddle off a man from Germany. He brought that fiddle all the way back home to Asheville, North Carolina. And he played it for the rest of his life. And he taught me how to play the guitar. It was a small Gibson I bought from Dunham's Music House. He'd come home after work, put his lunch pail down. He worked at the power company. Carolina Power and Light was called. Put his lunch pail down and he would say, "Son, let's you and me play a tune before dinner." I still remember all those old songs he used to play, or we used to play. There was Alabama Jubilee, Down Yonder, Steel Guitar Rag, Harbor Lights, Wayward Wind, Deep Ellum Blues. When you go down in Deep Ellum, you got to put your money in your shoes, because those Deep Ellum women, they got the Deep Ellum Blues. Oh, sweet mama. Sweet mama, your daddy's got the Deep Ellum Blues. My hands have touched so many things. Cracked sidewalks, New York City. Knock around hats. There was once one buddy of mine had a screen print across the front that said, "Going Nucky Futz." Beer glasses at the Bar de Marché in Paris. The sea, the sand, and the tide, and a lone feather dropped from the wing. I tell you now, it was a magic feather. I held it up to the sun, and I became a new species, shadow dancing across the edge of time. I trust the rain, and I trust the shadows and the spirits that slip between the drops. The moon was full on the midnight float down the Rio Grande. It was June last year. Hundreds of beavers slapped the river with their tails. Light edged the sage. Cisco, New Mexico's most experienced river rafter, said, "Shh, shh, everybody be quiet. I have to listen to the river so it'll tell us where to go." You know, there's something to silence, sitting in the void, in the cashmere of nothingness, of bliss and awakening. And then the rush comes and it's morning. And in the morning I can hold my skin up to the sky, and I can hold the sun up with my tongue. My hands have touched so many things. The coffee grounds spilled across the counter, the keys dropped on the floor, the old shoelaces untied, the ivy on the stone, the dirty forks pushed under the plates, and the sheets in the nursing home where I once worked. When I was a boy, thin, framed, fast as lightning, touch so many things like the washcloth as I wipe the wrinkled men's skin. The pills I took to stay alive. One bite at a time I fed them, holding the spoon just long enough for them to swallow something, bitter, sweet, depending on the day. My shift ended at 3. I clocked out. Changed my clothes. Got on my Jeton Tour de France racing bike and pedaled down Shamrock Drive fast as I could. No helmet, gripping the handlebars. Certain I would never die. My hands have touched so many things. Here's one that reflects my childhood. It's a bit of a story and a bit of a poem. How much more time do I have?
Oh, I have no clue. I can go check.
So here we are. This is titled We Were Cannibals. So it's a newsflash, a poem, and then a short story. On July 19, 1967, a Piedmont Airlines collided with a private Cessna near Hendersonville, North Carolina, killing 79 people in the B-727 and a family of 3 in the Cessna. This particular accident was closely tied to inadequacies in the air traffic control system, particularly the lack of secondary surveillance radar and confusing transmissions by the air traffic control. We were cannibals. The sea roared in the distance as we all sat around a rough picnic table somewhere along the Chesapeake Bay near Norfolk, Virginia. It was 1961. My father's cigarette smoke mixed in the sea salt air and smelled slightly of the burning flesh. I'd know a few years later, July 19, 1967, when the jet crashed near the local airport and my brother David and I raced out to view the excitement. Down the road we sped alongside the screaming ambulances and all blinking blue and red, racing as fast as they could to the wreckage lying on the ground in the metallic smoke-filled air that tasted of charred hair and flesh. We were cannibals. I've come to think now that I'm older, but the 82 lives of those who would die in that crash were saved the day we listened to the sea and the crazy gulls whooping and diving. My father smoked unfiltered Camels, a habit he had picked up during the war, where he had surely seen much worse than the wreckage of the B-727 we consumed a few years later. Posted that on my blog. Stirred up a whole lot of people around Asheville who remembered that event. And this woman told me a story about a fellow named Ronnie Dunwoody. He bought a ticket because he was going to be shipped off to Vietnam, and he was scheduled to be on. He bought a ticket for this flight. And his parents went away for a trip, and Ronnie left for his trip. Parents heard about the crash. It was a big tragedy for their family. It was really sad. You know, Ronnie didn't make it to Vietnam. Ronnie was killed in the crash. They had the memorial service. And some of the people in the Facebook page that read this went to the memorial service. And as you can imagine, it was rather sad. And after the memorial service, Ronnie's mother and father drove back home. And on the porch was this large box. And they opened it up, and it was a lounge chair. And it's a lounge chair that they'd wanted for their anniversary, and it was from their son Ronnie. And there was a note on it that read, "Dear Mother and Father, I don't want you to be mad about me sending this chair to you. I know that you really wanted this chair, and I wanted you to have it for your anniversary. It really means a lot to me that you are my parents. And I really hope you're not mad at me, because I cashed in my ticket and I hitchhiked to California." Love Ronnie. He had no idea the plane had crashed. And I just thought that was just remarkable. Just a remarkable story. So I will, I'll close with just one more piece that I generated the other night from my improvisational work. And I'll end with this. Have any of you been to Marshall on Thursday nights to the music up there at Zuma Cafe? Yes. Really something. Professional level stuff. It's free. Buy a latte, buy a tea, go in there and listen to the music. Went up there that night. And afterwards I walked around town and I recorded this in my recorder. For those of you who write poetry, I love to record stuff, so you might want to try that and then transcribe it and then revise it. So here it is. It's quiet tonight. A pickup truck crosses the French Broad River Bridge. Tall lights fade into the woods, edge up the mountains on the other side. Half moon glistens on the water. The same stars hang in the sky tonight. The same stars that have always hung in the sky. White smoke wafts from the chimney of the sheriff's department. Large star covers the front door. Bright fluorescent lights shine out, almost like the light itself is trying to escape. In another window, the dispatcher sits underneath a yellow light, waiting for a call. This is a quiet town. Few calls will come tonight. Tracks run along the river. These tracks have known trains and plenty of them. Over the grade of Tennessee, blow their lonesome whistles and keep on going. A blue light shines from the courthouse. The clock says 9:45. An oversized red light hangs above the intersection. Substantial underneath the American flag, like it was the judge, the jury, and the one that says guilty or not guilty. Why would such a small town need such a large light? I've just come out of Zuma Cafe after 2 hours of listening to old-time music. Long ago, I played old-time music with my father. He loved his fiddle. He stole it off a man in Germany. Brought it home from World War II. A white-haired man who sang old ballads most of the evening said, "Yeah, I remember your father. He was a nice man." Tonight, I'm lonely. Not lonely in the sense of terribly, excruciatingly alone. Lonely more in the sense of the music that's been going on in these mountains for years and years. It's bitter tonight. A deep, hard, serious breeze. Nobody would sit on the metal park benches in front of the courthouse, and nobody would ever sleep on. Inside Zuma Cafe, the young woman who served sandwiches all night stacks chairs. She seems in no hurry to leave. A few musicians mill around and socialize. Why am I so drawn to quiet, unpopulated sidewalks? Towns like Marshall can tell so many stories. My story is the story of a man walking down this street, fascinated with the fire safety house in the parking lot, and why everything is so quiet. Quiet equals prayer. I like quiet, always have. I look up again at the stars and the moon. I think the moon's moved just a little bit since I started all this. Electricity pulses through the transformers hanging on the creosote poles. Beside the volunteer fire station, a large blue Pepsi sign tells me I can have a 12-ouncer. Just slide 4 quarters into the slot, and like an apple from a tree, the can will fall out with a plunk, cold, ready to drink. Pop it open, take it down. Not so fast. Not tonight. I don't need to drink a Pepsi. I've been drinking music for the last 2 hours and I feel like I just walked out from under a waterfall. There's longing in the night, longing in the music, and longing in the need to be alive. Time to leave this town behind. Tag on my car reads, North Carolina, MPH 9488, first in flight. The night will always belong to the night. comes over me like a congregation, whipping up salvation down yonder on a good Sunday along the Mississippi. Coffee, drink of the chosen one. Wide-eyed night crawlers, hard-boiled Irish lads, steel bangers and track sweepers, dead-on radio junkies, flag burners, coal burners, and Vegas showgirls praising the sun in California, and you and me and any of us that's got the need to kick it out low. You know, we've got to make, we're going to make some fire. And if that Java puts x-rays in our eyes, let's lay down a buck or two and make it happen. I take mine black. How about you?